Okay, so you've been really digging into Egypt's economy lately,
Yeah.
and we've got like a super interesting deep dive prepped for you based on your sources.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're looking at this recent episode of Ticks and Picks,
Yeah.
which really kind of gave a cool overview of Egypt's economic outlook, from like Morgan Stanley's predictions to some like, corporate news and then movements in the stock and gold markets.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and one detail that really popped for me was this CEO who made a huge stock purchase after his company reported record sales.
Oh,
We'll get into that and what that might mean for the Egyptian real estate market.
yeah, cool. I'm excited to hear about that.
Yeah, so first off, let's start with Morgan Stanley and their analysis of the Egyptian economy.
Sure.
So they're predicting a slowdown in inflation, down to around 16% by the middle of 2025,
Okay.
which, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that sounds positive. Yeah.
But they also say that interest rates are probably going to stay high throughout 2024, with the possible cut in December, if things start looking up.
Right.
They also projected GDP growth of 4.8% for fiscal year 2025, which is up from 2.9% this year.
Okay.
So what do you think about those predictions? Like, what does that mean for the overall health of Egypt's economy?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because you've kind of got a mixed bag of signals in those figures. I mean, slowing inflation, that's really encouraging, right?
Right.
But if you've got high interest rates, that could kind of put the brakes on,
Yeah.
investment and people spending money.
Makes sense.
And then when you look at the GDP growth projection, I mean, yeah, it looks good, right? 4.8%.
Yeah.
But you got to remember it's coming off of a pretty low base.
Oh, I see.
So the big question is, can Egypt sustain this growth and deal with inflation at the same time?
Yeah. So it's a bit of a balancing act, it sounds like.
For sure.
So let's switch gears a little bit and look at some corporate news.
Okay.
So Nas Investments, they put in a bid to acquire 90% of Samad Misr, offering 95 Egyptian pounds per share.
Oh, wow.
So what do you think? Like, what could this mean for, the ripple effect of this acquisition?
Yeah. I mean, this could be a really big deal, especially for, the fertilizer and petrochemical sectors.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Right.
this deal goes through, it could set off a bunch more, companies combining and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that could totally shake up how much companies are worth across those industries.
I see.
I think it also shows that there's still a lot of interest in making strategic investments in Egypt,
Right.
which is a good sign for the overall investment climate there.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of market confidence,
Yeah.
let's talk about Talaat Moustafa Group.
Okay.
So their CEO just bought 500,000 shares of the company.
Wow.
And this comes after they announced record sales like over 500 billion Egyptian pounds.
That's huge.
So, I mean, that seems like a pretty big vote of confidence, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, CEOs, they usually have a really good grasp of how their company's doing and what's coming down the line.
Yeah.
So when a CEO makes a move like that, it sends a strong signal to the market, especially people who are watching the real estate sector closely.
Yeah.
It tells them that the CEO thinks the company is going to keep growing
Right.
and that there's a good chance for strong returns.
Yeah, for sure. But then on the flip side, we have his deal.
Okay.
They decided to delist from the Egyptian Stock Exchange.
Really?
And they said it's because of market risks and too much steel being produced globally.
Oh, wow. So what's the story there?
Yeah. I mean, what do you think is going on with that steel?
I think it really shows the challenges that the Egyptian steel industry is facing right now. You've got way too much supply worldwide and the market's all over the place.
Right.
So it's tough being a steel producer these days.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think the real question is whether this is a sign of bigger problems in the Egyptian economy or if it's just specific to steel.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if other companies start pulling out of the stock exchange too.
For sure. For sure. So then on top of all that, we've got rumors flying around about potential IPOs for Cairo Bank and Heliopolis Housing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And just those rumors alone were enough to send Heliopolis' stock price up by like 20%.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
So what do you think is fueling all this, these rumors and this stock surge?
I think it shows how investors are feeling right now.
Yeah.
There's this like buzz around the idea of new companies going public.
Right.
Because it could bring a lot of new money into the Egyptian market
Yeah.
and make things more dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. So let's touch on the stock market performance, in general.
Okay.
The EGX 30 seems to have kind of stabilized
Yeah.
after bouncing back in that 28,300 support level.
Right.
And, just for anyone listening who might not know, support level is a price point where a stock or index usually finds some buyers and starts to go up
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
So meanwhile, the EGX70, it's bounced back nicely from its low point in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
So what do these movements tell you about how people are feeling about the market?
Well, I think it shows that even with some uncertainty, investors are still finding opportunities in Egypt.
Okay, cool. So now let's switch to the gold market.
Okay, sounds good.
So globally, gold prices went up to like $2,700 an ounce,
Wow.
but then it hit some resistance.
Mm.
And again, for anyone who's not sure, resistance, that's when a lot of sellers come in and stop the price from going any higher.
Right.
Now, locally, gold prices in Egypt, they've been pretty stable.
Okay.
So what's driving these different trends, globally versus locally?
Well, with gold, global prices are affected by a lot of different things, like what's happening politically around the world,
Right.
worries about inflation,
All right.
changes in currency, exchange rates. It's a whole bunch of stuff.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. And then when you look at Egypt, it's interesting because local gold prices are staying steady,
Right.
even though the gold-dollar exchange rate has gotten a little bit weaker.
So that's like how much Egyptian currency it takes to buy an ounce of gold, right?
Exactly. And that tells me that there are things happening within Egypt that are really influencing the price of gold there.
I see. So for our listeners who are, following all of this really closely with Egypt's economy,
Yeah.
what are the main takeaways here?
Well, I think it's clear that, Egypt's economy, it's a moving target.
Uh-huh.
You see some positive signs in real estate, potential IPOs.
Right.
But then you've got challenges in industries like steel.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag.
It's dynamic for sure and complex.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to remember that Egypt's economy is part of a bigger global picture.
Yeah.
Things like commodity prices worldwide and how global investors are feeling.
Yeah.
Those things have a big impact on Egypt.
Makes sense.
Right.
So on that note, here's something for you all to think about.
Okay.
Given everything we've talked about today,
Uh-huh.
what parts of Egypt's economy or, specific companies would you be most interested in exploring further?
That's a good question.
Yeah, let us know, because your curiosity might just be the spark for our next deep dive.
Awesome. I like that.
Cool.
Thanks for this.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
was really interesting.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what our listeners come up with
We too.
for the next deep dive.
All right. Well, until then.
See ya.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.